Hello, everyone. This is Ahmad Muradi. I wanted to say hello and thank you for attending to our webcast. And I'm going to basically shut down some of my duplicate screens so we don't get extra audio on that. And the purpose of today's meeting is really interesting for me because I have been an IT guy and in marketing and sales and distribution and technologies for over 41 years. And from time to time, I come across colleagues that I find their knowledge to be valuable. And as we do these kind of things once a month, where we are doing streaming to our audiences, the goal and objective is to inform, communicate, and educate. Taking that into consideration right now, one of the areas that we felt that is extremely important is time management. A lot of people that they are contacting me via LinkedIn or other means and social, they want to establish communication, especially with virtual communications, and establish a meeting or connect and do follow on sales and so forth. But one thing probably most of the time fails is in the art of closing. So I have had the pleasure of working with some of the colleagues, and I happen to meet the colleague that I'm about to introduce, Mr. Ori Dror. He's based in Israel, and he has had over 20 years of sales and marketing and experience in real time, where he had faced many of these obstacles. So as a colleague, I invited him to attend, and he started a coaching program, and the information that he's providing is not affiliated to NETSTAIRS. We don't get any benefit from that service. We are just making an introduction because we feel Ari brings a value to the market and also helps others to understand that you can do everything from lead generation all the way to prospecting and following up and all of these other activities. But if you do not close sales, then you don't have anything to talk about. Taken into a consideration, I am going to present you with the format, a little introduction first about our mutual colleague that I let him to give you a background, and then we will get into the presentation itself of closing. Please keep in mind this is a short review, about 30 minutes, so if you need additional sessions and so forth, I'll be more than happy to share Ori's contact information, and you can contact him directly if you want to explore other opportunities and coaching sessions. Or alternatively, if you have other questions that you want to ask during the Q&A session, which will be very short and brief because of the timing, we will answer some of those questions selectively. With that in mind, I'll turn over the podium back to my colleague Ori. And Ori, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Ahmed. And it is great pleasure to be here and to have others to improve their sales closing. And if you want, we can show the presentation and then we can start.
Presentation is ready now, and we are starting with the first slide. And I'm moving to the second slide that Ori, you can talk about yourself.
Okay, just a moment. I just want to also to put it on my computer.
Right.
Just a moment, please. Okay. Moment. Okay. So we are on the second slide. Okay. Right. So this is just general information about me. As Ahmed introduced myself, I have a website called Sales Charm for Businesses, and it is a e-learning website to help entrepreneurs, business owners to improve their sales skills. So next.
Introduction.
Okay. Introduction. Good. So now I'm going to speak with you about what is sales closing, really in short term. Sales closing is actually a very small part in the sales process or the sales discussion. So it is only 2-3 sentences in the end. And it's significant, as I see it, it's only 10% because asking the right questions and presenting the product and the right interaction probably would make most of the work for you. However, if you don't know how to close the deal, You can be a mediocre seller or even a good seller, but you won't be an amazing seller. So this is what buffers you from closing and no closing. Next.
Yes.
So in this presentation, I'm going to speak with you about three parts, about trust, which in one glance you can think that it's not related for closing, but I would show you that it is very much related to that. Second is phases in closing, meaning that there are steps and principles that you need to follow in order to close your deals. And of course, means of closing, meaning that ways that you can ask customers to close the deal. Next. So first, we're going to speak about trust. Trust is very important component in the sales process. Customers that don't trust you won't close the deal. It doesn't matter how many times you're going to ask them to close the deal. And if they trust you, it doesn't matter that they will close the deal, but if they're going to object, the objection would be much softer. It would be easier to deal with their objection. Next. So you can see trust in 4 dimensions. First, there is the professionalism, to be an expert. If you know how to answer the customer's questions fast and to the point, you would be seen as an expert. Also, you need to know how to address customers' needs. Second, creating a dialogue. No one wants or loves someone who speaks to themselves. You need to speak around 50% of the time with the customers the other half. Then the chances the customers want to close the deal is much higher. Third, you need to create positive atmosphere, meaning that the customers need to feel that you are broadcasting on the same level. If the customer is all the time objecting for the sales conversation, you won't close the deal. It doesn't matter how many times, again, you would ask him to close. You need to hear the customers say around 2-3 times the word yes, correct, or anything related. And fourth, of course, many times customers need to like you. You need to build rapport. You need to approximate the customers. So you need to create small talks, not in every case. There are some analytical customers or even practical customers who won't like this. And then you need to find other ways to get close to them by the tone, by being an expert, by speaking in the same style of communication. Anything else would make them become or feel closer to you. Next.
Slide 8.
Slide 7.
7, sorry.
7 phases to close the deal. Okay? So let's speak about phases to close the deal. There are 5 principles you need to follow and you need to pay attention, and there's also the steps inside the sales script or discussion. So first, pay attention that the customer asking you questions that may lead to a sale. Second, present higher price and then a cheaper one. Say the price, of course, with confidence. Don't hesitate. Add value after you say the price, because you don't want to hear the customer. You don't want to hear the customers listen or hear the price lessly. And fifth, ask the customers to buy. Very simple. Many sellers fall in this section. Next. Slide 8. Okay. So recognize the customer sales signal. In many times, customers would ask you some questions that, in a glance, you won't think that they actually ask you how they want to close the deal. That actually almost mature to close the deal. Almost. Sometimes they can ask you questions like, in which color can I get the product? When can you send me the product? Is this the only product that I can receive? These kind of questions indicates that the customer is almost willing to buy the product, and then you should go straight ahead to ask them to buy the product. Next. So these are other examples. When can we start? Can I get the product in blue? Why the product isn't X but it's Y? Sometimes you won't think about it, and you need to listen to what the customer is really saying during the sales conversation. And then when you really listen and you understand what they're saying, sometimes you can catch other slots inside the sales process that you can go for closing. And then you improve yourself drastically. Next.
Number 10.
Number 10, yeah. Present higher price and then lower one. So here, you need to remember that even though we know this is one of the oldest tricks in the book, it's still working. Look at the sales. The sales, like 70% off. We know this is bullshit. We know that. And still, it works every time. People think buying and start people. And you should also do it. When you present your price, say something like this. The regular price is $100, but you can receive it, find an excuse. Why? $80. Maybe you are a new customer, or maybe we give it to 10 customers a day or something like that. Okay? But the customers need to feel that he is in the center and that he actually get better deal than others. Next.
So Ori, one of the key questions is that people want to know what's in it for them. Why should they care in addition to, so you're offering them a special privilege in terms of closing that it makes them special and wanted. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
They need to feel that they get a special price.
Right.
Even though they know unconsciously that it may be a lie,
right.
Still it is working in many cases. Right. Okay? So next we're going to speak about, we are on slide 11. Okay? Yes. Saying the price is confidence. I don't speak only about don't hesitate. When you hesitate, customers feel it. And then don't be surprised that he's going to tell you it's too expensive, or I have no budget, or I want to think about it, because then we spoke about trust. You harm his trust, and he can't, he feels that you're not reliable enough. So say the price in confidence. Also, another thing is just the presenting the price has to be a part of the sales speech. It has to be very natural. Like you present the product, you have to say yes, the price in the same rhythm, in the same tone. Don't change anything. The customers would feel it. And then unconsciously, they would think, okay, there is a big issue in the price. And then he will tell you it's too expensive. It has to be a part of the sales speech. Next. Adding value sentence. This is also very important. You don't want to hear the customers. You don't want the customers would hear lastly the price. You don't want this, because then the last thing they're going to hear is $1,000. They say, oh, I'm going to spend this amount of money. No, I'm not going to do that. It's too expensive. So you need to add one more sentence.
What would be a typical example of those sentences that you could apply within a closing when somebody brings that kind of an objection?
What? The customer is telling you that it's too expensive?
Correct.
Okay. It's very easy. Just ask him regarding to what it is expensive. That's it. And then you understand why the customer is saying that. Then you need to break down every objection, because you don't know exactly what does it mean. and it's too expensive.
How do you detect objection, Ori, during the closing?
Okay, so it's very easy because there are common objections. There's like I want to think about it, which is not really an objection, but it's an opening for another objection. And there is, I want to consult with someone, and I don't have time, I don't want to obligate, it's too expensive, I don't have budget. These are, or maybe I don't see how it's going to help me, okay? These are probably the most common objections you're going to hear. And when you hear it, you need to break down the objection, use tools. I also have another presentation about what kind of tools you can use. I just don't want to get inside right now. And then you need to go for closing. Sometimes you will have to go for closing 2-3 times at least.
Yes.
And sometimes you need also to follow up. You just ahead of me, okay? I would explain on this later, okay? And about ending value sentence, so as I said before, don't say lastly the price, okay? Add one more sentence. It can be, you can summarize the presentation, your product presentation in 2-3 sentences, or you can add one more value that you didn't say in the presentation, okay?
Understood.
So next.
13.
So this is ask the customers to buy. And this is very simple, very, very simple. Just ask the customers to close the deal. That's it. But many sellers, entrepreneurs, business owners fall in this part. Why? Because they're afraid of the customer's reaction.
They don't know how to handle answer no or objections. Am I correct?
Sorry?
I said they don't know how to handle objections themselves.
Yeah, they're afraid of the customer's objections.
Right.
And then they just go around and around expecting that the customers will tell them, yes, I want to close it. It won't happen.
Correct.
What will happen is that the customer is going to tell you that he wants to think about it and he run away, escape, okay? He would be exhausted. You don't want this. And you will be also exhausted.
Understood.
So, very simple, just ask the customers to buy the product and expect that the customers would raise objection. It's a natural part in the sales process. It's fine, okay? And then you need to deal with the objections, okay?
Yes.
Next. And
14.
as I said before, and actually we spoke about it, just a moment, I had a call, so sometimes it's just inconvenient. Okay, so one of the things that is really important is to understand that around 80% of sales will be after approximately 5 attempts. You need to go for closing around 5 times and sometimes even more to close the deal. How you do that? You need to know how to deal with objections. You go for closing, then the customer's objection, you deal with the objection, you go again for closing. In the first attempt, when you speak with the customer in the first time, you probably could go for closing around 2-3 times. That's it. If you go too much, customers will feel more pushy and then the deal is off. You need to remember that. So you need also to master in the follow-up, in the follow-up system. And then you follow up the customers and you go again for closing. Sometimes you need 2, 3, 4 times to have a sales discussion with the same customer in order to close the deal. Okay?
Right.
Next. We are on slide 15, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the means of closing of the deal. It's just the way you can ask the customer to close the deal. That's it. And if you look very, very closely, you will see there are 3 major ways that you can ask the customer to close the deal. Let's next. The first approach, which is the most common and everyone is using it, is the stretch approach. I will explain about it later on. The O, which I really, really like, and going over customer details, which you can also call the registration kind of closing. Next. So there is the straight approach. You can separate this to directly kind of closing and indirectly kind of closing. So next, the first thing is direct closing. You just simply ask the customer to close the deal. Do you want the product? Do you want to pay for the product? Are we going for this deal? And so on. You go straight ahead, straight forward, and ask the customers to buy the product.
So simply ask.
Simply ask. That's it. And it is working on, it's working more likely on practical people and analytical people. By the way, if you're going to use it on more people-oriented people, so the chances that they would close the deal by this kind of closing is much lower. Okay, so you need again to listen to the style of communication. Okay.
In your experience with the cultural diversity that we are facing, especially post-COVID-19, do you feel that cultural means has impact on the way that we ask questions for the closing from different customers in different regions?
No, I don't think there is a difference. I think customers tend to close more deals on the phone because the COVID-19 causes us to feel more secure about it. Many deals now being done by the internet. We don't need to see the person to buy the product.
Right.
It actually makes it much easier to close more deals. Okay?
So back to the trust factor where video and technology can bring us closer together so we can meet face to face, answer any of their objections and questions, and then go for the closing cycle, correct?
Yeah, you can do like Zoom meetings and then the customer is going to see you and it is easier to close, of course.
Understood.
In a meeting is most likely easier to close the deal than on the phone, always. Okay?
Good.
Next.
19.
Yeah, 19. Straight approach, the indirect closing. The indirect closing is the opposite way of the direct closing. That's it. You just need to ask the customer a question that leads him to close the deal. It's not a direct way to close it. Indirect, meaning that in which color do you want the product? Where do you want me to send you the product? When do you want me to send it? When it is, if you're doing telemeeting and you want to meet with the customer, when it would be a better time to meet.
Right.
You just ask a question that leads the customer to buy the product. That's it.
Understood.
So many of us probably use this kind of system already, and we don't know that this is the straight approach.
Right.
Okay? So if you don't feel comfortable with the direct closing, go for the indirect closing. Okay? Many sellers use it.
Understood.
Next. This is, I really, really like the old question. Why? Because it's very simple in the first time to ask the customers to give him options, 2 or 3 options, that every option is going to choose. It would be good for me, good for us.
Right.
Okay? So you give him 2 or 3 options, and then you ask him, what do you want from these 2 or 3 options? And then the customer choose the option and you close the deal. It's not that simple, of course. Many times the customers will tell you, yes, I want option A, but let me think about it. People are not sorry, but not idiot, okay?
Right.
So it's a way to go for closing, and then you pull the customers to you a little bit. And then customers say, objection, great, you deal with the objection, and then you try another method of closing. Okay? So next, we are on 21.
Correct.
Okay, the whole example, a question, very, very, very simple, okay? Do you want plan A, B, or C? Do you want plan A or the upgraded plan, okay? Do you want the product in blue, green, or orange, okay? You see that this is a soft way to go for closing. Another way, do you want to receive the product through certificate mail or express mail? Do you want, if you're doing telemeeting, do you want to meet with us in the morning or at noon, okay? It's very common way to go for closing and very, very powerful. So use it at least one time each time you try to go for closing. And there is another way that I really like to go for closing because the customer doesn't feel that you actually ask him to close the deal. So this is the registration kind of closing. You just move over the details if you're doing on the phone. So I see that your phone number is this kind of numbers, correct? Great, okay. And your email is that. So what is your address? This is very natural. When the closing is natural, as much as possible, the chances that the customers would want to buy is much higher. And there's, of course, very easy way. When you meet with the customer, you just need to hand over the agreement and ask the customers to read the agreement, and then he would many times fill the agreement. He can also tell you that he wants to think about, he wants to take the agreement, and then he wants to return to. Of course, there would be some objections in some cases.
Understood.
I'm sorry, I had a call
No problem.
last week, and I just got married with the virus. I had leftovers.
We're glad to have you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so if you, by the way,
Yes,
and
22.
if you are using a CRM system, it's even easier because then you just need to repeat on the details you have on the CRM. For example, I see that the 4 last digits of your credit card is 6666.
Right.
So I just need the 12 numbers from left to right. It's very natural. And when you use it right, you close more deals.
Correct.
So next.
23.
24.
24. Apologies.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the summary, of course, of what we are speaking here. And the main thing that you need to remember is to practice. There's no better way, there is no easy way to be master in closing. You need to ask for closing, see the customer's reaction, and then improve yourself. Next.
25.
25, yeah. So this is how you're going to implement the what we are speaking here. Okay. So first, raise customers' trust. Put trust components inside your sales script. For example, regarding for expertise or professionalism, you can write common questions that customers tend to ask you and what you can answer to them. Then you answer to the point and customers feel that you are an expert. You raise the customer trust.
Understood.
Second, write your sales closing process inside the script. 2-3 sentences how you're going to ask the customer to close it, how you're going to present the product, and what value you're going to add after the customer, after you're saying the prices, okay?
Yeah.
And so forth. And of course, write at least 5 closing sentences and try each one of them and see what gives you a better result, a better outcome, a better conversion rate. And then when you see what gives you a better conversion rate, then imitate. Find other closing sentences that are similar and use them. Like you're doing in marketing, A/B testing. You're doing this also in sales.
Right.
Next.
26.
26, yeah. So this is the end of the presentation. Of course, if you have some questions, you can also happily answer, or Ahmed, you can also send me an email with the question, or some the participants can send me an email straight to me, and I would be happy to help.
Absolutely. Okay. One of the things, because of our timing, that we got a couple of more minutes, we currently don't seem to have any questions from our audience, but if there are, please send it to salescharm1983@gmail.com, or you can visit or inquiry at netstairs.com, and we will forward it to Ori for your questions and answers. Also, be sure to visit his site, salescharmforbusiness.com, where there are additional sales library available for your education. And then if you feel that you need additional coaching, which we also plan to get access and work with Ori in some of this subject with our own team, then closing becomes an integral part of your process, because you can do all of these things that Ori just was explaining. But unfortunately, without having a team together and working collaboratively, where we could combine and put the process into a closure, then we have really no objectivity or process that we can have. So with that in mind, I want to thank everybody attending our session. Ori, I know you were not feeling so well, so I feel you, and I hope you get better. And I do want to thank you for taking the time. So we will follow up, and I don't see any Q&A at this juncture. So be safe, be well, and we'll follow up with you and email. And again, those of you who are interested, we will in the same Let's Cast page put the links.
Just one more little thing.
Sure.
Apology. I also added a link inside the comments.
Yes.
A link for my article, Sales Closing, that you can also read in your spare time, in your free time. And you can also click on the link for my sales library over there and just pick the worksheets you need. You just need to insert your email and choose whatever worksheet you need. So I also want to say many thanks for your time, and hopefully you get many benefits from this sales presentation.
Thank you. And we will definitely post those links in Let's Cast page so the colleague can access to it. And also we record it in here and post it for the colleagues that they didn't have time to attend, and they can watch at a later date. Be safe, be well, good to see you, and we'll be in touch.